My name is Layla Morgan. When I was a kid, it was just me and my mom. We were a team. Her laughter filled the house, and I swore we'd never need anything else. But life doesn't work like that. One day, the world just takes what it wants. My mom was gone before I could even figure out what happened, and my dad, well, he didn't know how to fill that empty space. He remarried Evelyn soon after, this polished, sophisticated woman, the kind who smiled at you with a hidden agenda, behind every word. She had her own 2 kids, Carter and Camille. They were perfect in a way that made me feel like I was invisible. At first, things seemed okay. We had dinners, laughter, and I even got used to Evelyn's fake kindness. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. After Dad passed, Evelyn didn't hold back. I was no longer a daughter in her eyes. I was a charity case, a burden, to her world of glitter and status. She'd make snide comments when she thought I wasn't listening. How could he leave you anything? You'll never belong here. Her words dug into me, each one a reminder that I didn't have a place. Carter and Camille, they weren't better, but I kept quiet. I worked any job I could find. I saved every penny, every hour spent in silence. I didn't have much, but I had one thing that kept me going. A secret. Something my father left me. Something bigger than them all. It wasn't easy, pretending like everything was fine while they treated me like a ghost in their world. Evelyn's eyes never left me, sharp, calculating. She'd make sure to remind me, every chance she got, that I was nothing. A stray. A shadow she couldn't quite get rid of. At first, I thought maybe she was just adjusting to Dad's death, to the loss of the man who'd been her husband for so long. But as the months went by, the cracks in her facade grew wider. She didn't just want me gone. She wanted me small, invisible. I stayed quiet, though. What else could I do? The more she treated me like dirt, the more I worked. I picked up every odd job I could find, no matter how small. I cleaned houses, served coffee, sorted through piles of laundry. I got good at fading into the background, at pretending that nothing bothered me. At least, on the outside. But inside, I was burning. Every snide remark from Camille, every look from Carter, every time Evelyn ordered me around like I was less than human, it chipped away at me. But I knew something they didn't. I knew my dad had done something for me, something he'd kept a secret. It wasn't much, just a percentage of his company, Novatech, 40%, a company that at the time wasn't much. But I knew its potential. I could feel it. I was going to make it work, make it mine. But for now, I stayed quiet, biding my time, watching them all, waiting for the right moment to show them who I really was. The world doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just changes, whether you're prepared or not. I watched it happen to Novatech, the company my father had built. At first, it felt like any other startup, scrappy, struggling, barely making a mark in the tech world. But then something shifted. A breakthrough. An innovation in artificial intelligence that no one saw coming. Suddenly, Novatech wasn't just a name on a business card. It was a juggernaut. I'd kept my stake in the company hidden. No one knew. Not even Evelyn, not even Carter or Camille. They all thought I was still just the poor little girl they could push around. But they didn't know what I had been quietly nurturing, what my father had given me, what I had been building in the shadows. Novatech had exploded in value. The AI software that was developed, it changed everything. Tech giants were lining up, eager to buy it out or partner with it. My 40% wasn't just worth a few thousand anymore. It was worth millions, more than Evelyn could ever dream of. And as it grew, so did the pressure. The more the company succeeded, the more I felt the weight of it all. I wasn't just holding on to a piece of Dad's legacy anymore. I was holding on to my future, holding on to the power to change everything. I kept it all close, hidden under layers of silence. But I could feel the storm coming. I could see how things were about to shift, and I wasn't going to be the same Layla they'd ignored anymore. I was biding my time, waiting for the world to catch up with me. It's funny how life can feel like a cruel joke sometimes. Carter had always been the golden child, handsome, charming, the one everyone loved. And then, as if to cement his place in their perfect little world, he announced his wedding. Not just any wedding. This was supposed to be the event of the year, the one that would cement his and Evelyn's status in the social elite. I was invited, of course, but only in name. Evelyn made it clear. I was to show up, serve drinks, and stay out of the way. Not an ounce of respect, not an ounce of acknowledgement that I was anything more than a servant in her eyes. I didn't care. I wasn't there for them. I was there for me. Carter's wedding was a spectacle, the kind of event you only see in movies. It was glossy, glittering, and filled with the kind of people who wear wealth like armor. They glided around in their shiny shoes, their smiles as fake as the diamonds on their necks. Evelyn was in her element, basking in the attention, smiling like the queen of a kingdom built on appearances. I was in the background, of course, wearing a waitress uniform, serving drinks, quietly moving between tables like I didn't matter. But I knew more than they thought. I knew what was going on behind the scenes. I knew the future they were building, the future they had no idea I could destroy with a single move. But I stayed silent, moving with purpose, never drawing attention. They didn't know yet, but soon they would. The wedding felt like an out-of-body experience. I could see it all. The glitz, the smiles, the champagne glasses clinking together like promises no one intended to keep. There they were, the people who had been so quick to put me in my place, pretending to be happy. Evelyn, perched like a bird in her designer gown, fluttering from one guest to the next, soaking up every ounce of attention. Carter, basking in his moment, the center of the universe for one night. And then there was me, dressed in black and white, a waitress amidst the sea of glittering faces. My apron felt too tight, my heels too high. But I didn't mind. I had a job to do. I wasn't there to enjoy the party. I wasn't even there as a guest. I was there to serve, to blend in, to disappear. But I saw it all. Camille's smirk when she looked at me, her eyes cold, as if I were nothing more than a stain on her perfect world. She sauntered past me, her words sharp and biting. Careful not to spill, Layla. This crowd's worth $400 million. I wanted to shout at her, to remind her that her wealth was nothing but smoke and mirrors, but I didn't. I stayed quiet. I couldn't let them see how much their words hurt, how much their cruelty weighed on me. But deep down, I knew. I knew the game was changing. I knew they didn't understand what they were dealing with. While they played their petty games of status and wealth, I was playing for something far bigger, far more important. I wasn't a waitress, and they were about to find out why. The air was thick with tension, but no one could see it. Not yet. They were all too busy patting themselves on the back, talking about mergers and investments, about who had the bigger yacht or the more exclusive vacation homes. The party buzzed with shallow chatter, the kind that people like Evelyn thrive in. But there was something they didn't know, something I knew, and it made the glittering world around me feel small and fragile. As I moved through the crowd, balancing, trays, offering refills, I overheard snippets of conversations that caught my attention. Words like merger, partnership, and Novatech floated into my ears. I didn't need to eavesdrop to understand what was happening. I already knew. I'd done the research. Novatech, my father's company, was at the center of it all. A major tech deal was hanging on the line, and their merger, the one everyone was so desperate for, was relying on Novatech's AI software. It was surreal, hearing them talk about it so casually, like they were the ones pulling the strings, like they were the ones who had the power. They had no idea that the real power rested in my hands. They thought I was just a waitress. But the truth was, I held 40% of Novatech's shares, the deal they were banking on. It couldn't happen without me, without my approval. They were all laughing and celebrating like it was a done deal. But they didn't know the truth. I was the one who could end it all with a single decision. And they were about to find out just how much control I had. The night was heavy, like the calm before a storm. The laughter and clinking of glasses felt distant, almost muffled. I could feel the tension, thickening with every passing second. Something was about to change, something none of them could see coming. I was halfway through my shift when the door to the ballroom swung open, and a group of men in suits walked in. Lawyers, by the looks of them. Their eyes scanned the room, like they were searching for a target. Their presence sent a ripple through the guests. Whispers spread like wildfire. What was going on? A few moments later, security followed, moving quietly but with purpose. I could feel the shift, the sudden unease in the air. Everyone's phones buzzed simultaneously, and I could hear snippets of conversation rising in volume, their voices tinged with confusion. I kept my head down, moving through the crowd with practiced ease. But inside, my heart raced. I could already feel the magnitude of what was about to unfold. The news broke like a slap in the face. I didn't even need to hear the announcement. I already knew. The merger. It was frozen. And the reason why? Layla Morgan, the key shareholder of Novatech, had halted it due to ethical concerns. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stop. Evelyn's glass fell from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Camille turned as white as a ghost. Carter's face twisted in anger and confusion. But the room was already descending into chaos. I stayed calm. I watched it all unfold from the edge of the crowd, my heart thudding in my chest. They had no idea. None of them understood the game had changed, and I was the one holding all the cards. The room was frozen in time, the kind of silence that only follows a bombshell. Every conversation, every laugh, every clink of a champagne glass. Gone. It felt like a ripple had spread across the entire room, and all at once, it hit everyone with a force they couldn't ignore. Evelyn stood motionless. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. She didn't know how to react. The queen of this little kingdom had just had her throne yanked out from under her. I saw her lips tremble, but no words came out, not even a sound, just the sharp inhale of someone who realized they'd lost control. Camille, always so smug, so certain of herself, turned ghost white. Her perfect little world, built on arrogance and status, was cracking. I could see the fear creeping into her eyes, the realization that something had slipped out of her reach. It wasn't just the deal. It was everything. And Carter? His rage was immediate. He pushed through the crowd, shouting at the lawyers, demanding answers. What the hell is going on? His voice cracked with panic. But no one answered. No, except the lawyer standing calmly in the center of the room, delivering the news that would change everything. She's the one who stopped the merger, the lawyer said, his voice steady, unfazed. Layla Morgan, the 40% shareholder of Novatech. She's halted the deal due to a breach of ethics. It felt like a punch in the gut. There they stood, my father's family, so certain that they were the ones who controlled everything. But they didn't know. They never knew how much power I'd been holding all along. And now, they were staring at me. Staring at the person they'd called a charity case. The person they'd pushed aside. And they were watching me take everything from them. There are moments in life where everything shifts. A point where silence becomes louder than any words. Where the weight of everything you've held back crashes into the room with the force of 1,000 storms. This was that moment. It was no longer enough to just watch. I had been quiet for so long, waiting for them to see what they'd done, what they'd taken from me. But now, the silence had stretched too far. I was done. The lawyer's words echoed in my ears as I stood there in the background, unnoticed. The people who had looked down on me, who had belittled me and treated me like I was nothing, were now scrambling to understand that the game had changed. The twist they never saw coming had arrived. I slowly took off the apron that had clung to me for so long. The fabric felt foreign against my skin as I let it drop to the floor. I straightened, my back, my hands steady as I reached for my heels, slipping them on one by one. Each movement was deliberate. Each breath I took was filled with purpose. The crowd was still buzzing with confusion, the whispers growing louder. But I wasn't just going to stand here, hidden. Not anymore. I made my way to the front of the room, cutting through the guests, who suddenly parted, as if they could feel the power I was carrying. I grabbed the microphone, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I looked at them all, Evelyn, Carter, Camille, and said, my voice cutting through the murmurs, "Next time you call someone a waitress, make sure she doesn't. Own your future." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. The room was still. It felt like the world had turned on its axis and left everything suspended in space. Evelyn's face frozen in shock. Carter, his mouth hanging open as if he couldn't understand what just happened. Camille, her eyes wide with fear, her perfect world shattered in one sentence. I stood there, the weight of it all pressing down on me, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was just free. For the first time in years, I was exactly who I was meant to be. No more pretending. No more silence. Evelyn blinked, the reality of what had just been revealed sinking in. It was more than just the merger being halted. It was everything she had built, everything she had worked for, crumbling in front of her eyes. For the first time, she saw me, not as the poor girl she could push around, not as the charity case she had dismissed, but as the woman who held the power to change everything. The guests were still murmuring, confused and unsure of how to react. But I didn't care about them. I didn't care about the gossip, the judgments, the way they looked at me. The truth had come out, and nothing would ever be the same again. I turned and walked away, not even looking back. I didn't need to. I knew what I had done. I knew what I had earned. For once, I didn't have to hide, didn't have to shrink myself to fit into a world that never saw me. They would never forget what I'd said, and they would never forget who I was. I didn't need them anymore. I didn't need anyone. I had myself. I had my future. And for the first time in years, I was finally in control of it.